Star Wars Geek Girls. They're geek girls that like Star Wars. And sometimes cry.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special episode of the Star Wars Geek Girl podcast for the 5th annual Star Wars Podcast Day. If you don't know, Star Wars Podcast Day celebrates the release of the very first Star Wars podcast. So make sure you check out today a special episode from all of your favorite podcasts, not just us, but anyone else that you listen to who's participating in Star Wars Podcast Day. So we're here first. I'm Zoe. As always, I'm here, as well as Lizzy.
Hello.
And we have two very special guests on the podcast today as well. They'd like to introduce themselves.
The fathers.
Oh, yeah, I'm Mike. I'm Zoe's dad.
I'm Sal. I'm Lizzy dad.
I feel like
That
we're
sounded
on,
weird.
What's that called?
Oh, you're
How old
moved
we are?
from me. Okay, yeah.
Hollywood
Anyway,
Squares, is that
Star
what it
Wars
is?
Geek Dads in the house.
Yes.
Mhm. We did that.
And so to celebrate this Star Wars Podcast Day, because it's the 5th annual Star Wars Podcast Day, and then in 2025, this fall, Star Wars Geek Girl will be celebrating 10 years of podcasting, which is scary. And crazy.
Scary but great.
Scary but great. And so we just thought we'd talk a little bit about our podcasting experience and how it's changed, and how we've changed over the past 10 years, and our fathers are here to weigh in as well, because they kind of got us into podcasting.
And Star Wars, at least for me, Star Wars in general too.
Star Wars too.
The obsession.
I mean, I wouldn't say I got you into it. I just put it on and then you liked it. That's fine.
That's
on you.
That's an
Built a
influence.
we just built.
You could have watched something else. Another DVD that I had.
4?
Yeah. You also watch Army of Darkness. You don't care too much for it these days.
Yes.
I rewatched it the other day, but yeah,
Mhm.
fair enough.
Don't
Mhm.
watch Army of Darkness with your wife if you used all those pickup lines on her when you were dating her.
Nice.
I found that out.
Respect.
I found that out the hard way.
That's
Okay,
right.
wait,
Shop
hold on.
smart, shop S-smart.
Wait.
No, it was just some lines in one of those movies I used and she thought it was adorable. And then when we were watching the movie one time, she was like, "Wait a minute."
The one that I'm thinking of, which I don't want to know, but the one
No,
that I'm
they were
is the give me some sugar, baby. Like,
I think
That's
I
one.
did use that.
Yeah.
okay, that's fine.
I'm
that's
sorry.
fair.
I'm sorry.
Sometimes.
I'm sorry.
Look, to be honest, who hasn't?
That's
It
great.
was the 80s.
No, that's great.
If using pickup lines from a movie on your wife is illegal, then you better send us all to jail.
Right. People didn't rewatch stuff as much back then.
Mm-hmm.
You had to go to Suncoast and buy a VHS tape.
Mm.
So wait, Zoe, you've watched Army of Darkness? Little.
When I was little, I think you put it on, and I
That's
didn't know what was happening. I couldn't tell you a single thing
That's
about that movie. But I remember we always
I
had
can
the
tell you a lot of
DVD.
things about that
I
movie.
was always there. It was like the shelf was like Star Wars.
But let's get back to the podcasting part.
Yeah. Yeah, 10 years. That's crazy.
Okay, Zoe, you said scary? How is it scary?
So scary.
Should feel like a
It's just past
monumental
time, bro.
achievement. 10 years is a long time.
It is. It is a monumental achievement, and I'm proud of it. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It was just like, whoa! I didn't realize it until I was putting it together. Like, that's a really long time to do anything, you know. And that's almost half my life.
Yeah.
I'm 23. Almost half my life I've been Star Wars.
So you guys have known each other for 10 years. You're 23. So when you are hold on.
Math?
6 more years. Wait, 4 more years.
Uh-huh.
In another 4 years, you will have known each other longer than you haven't known each other.
Right. Right.
All right.
I can just
How's
do
that?
numbers processing.
That's a
You
process.
notice I didn't do the full math. I just said 4 more years.
Well, yeah.
So that's a cheat. That's a grown-up cheat.
Just look at the shocking.
Even though the answer
pictures.
is 14. Sorry.
Look at the shocking pictures of Celebration when you first met, and look at Axel compared to what
God.
Axel looks like now.
Oh my gosh.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
That's the big difference. Like, I feel like, when we're thinking about it, we're like, oh, 10 years, that seems like it just went by. And like, I feel like we've definitely grown, but we're the same us. And then Axel's just like 180. That's crazy.
Well, especially because I look at some of those photos and I'm like, I feel like I look pretty much the same besides constantly changing my hair.
Mhm.
And same for you, like besides changing your hair, pretty much the same. And then Axel, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what happened?
And
Not in a bad
Yeah,
way, like,
but
I'm just
also-
like, what happened to this child? Where did
he was
go?
like
You guys-
smaller than you guys when you started.
Right.
And now he's like, you know what I mean? Like he's sort of like I always there was a guy at Lucasfilm, one of our friends, who always insisted that we must have recast him after season 3. Because like the next time he came back in costume, he was like, "Hey, what's up? I'm Ezra."
I do remember one time I don't remember what it was about, but we were recording a podcast and like in the background I heard someone come in and like talk to Lizzie, and it was like a grown man's voice, and I was like, Sal didn't sound like Sal. Was it their uncle? Didn't sound like him. Oh my god, that was Axel.
Yeah, he was on like the same thing happened. I was recording with Hawes at Blue Harvest. And like he came in, the same kind of thing. He probably said something to me or asked a question or something and then left. And Hawes was like, "Yo, my man, Axel's voice got deep." That's on an old episode of if you can find it. It's one of the ones with Hawes on it. Well, hold on. Let's go all the way back to the beginning. Now, Mike hit me up before you guys met.
Right.
Well, obviously.
We were just little siblings.
I'm not
that
good at
point.
storytelling.
But I think I had even hit you up even before I thought it was a podcast for Zoe.
Yes,
'cause
that's what I was trying to get at.
Because
I just did it badly.
It was your wife and some other woman who had done Sabine's, and that was
Mhm.
it. That was
Right.
the only two I could find. And I was just, I can be persistent when I
Yeah.
want to be.
You would hit me up about costume questions initially. You were like, "Hey, dude, I saw the Sabine, blah, 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 blah." Like, and I was sending you like references and then like whatever build pics we had, which like, honestly, that's why a lot of my current albums do not have a lot of our early build stuff. Cause I was just really dumb and bad about taking pictures. Like nowadays I try to keep that stuff a little
Right.
more consistent to build an album. But like back in the day, I would just like build the whole thing and then like it would be done. And then people would be like, "How did you do this?" And I was like, "Well, actually I sewed the thing." And then they'd be like, "Do you have pictures?" And I'd be like, "I kind of don't. I did it all in my head, kind of." So yeah, it was about costuming first because he was like, "Oh, okay." You're like, oh, and like it was funny because Mike does this thing where he like talks to me like I'm Rebel Scum because he's 501st.
Yeah.
So he's like sending me messages, this guy that I don't know, and he's just like, "Oh, I saw you had like some Rebel costumes. I'm Mike. I'm like from the 501st, and my daughter is like, I might, she's thinking about doing this costume. Like, what can you tell me?" And I was like, "Okay, here's what I did for this. This is where I got the helmet. This is what I'm doing. This is how I painted. These are the colors I used. And then he was like, cool. Thank you. I'm afraid you're being a little bit of a bad rebel influence on my child, but I will report back with any updates." And I was like, I don't know if I like this guy or not.
It was funny because her costume, that was the first thing I ever built. Like, because I had a stormtrooper, but
Even the Jawas?
The Jawas, I bought them from Chris Bartlett's website
Fair enough.
because I couldn't sew. I was like,
Right.
And I
You
saw
didn't build
people
the
that
mask.
couldn't. I built the masks and stuff. I did that, but
But it was like
that's easy.
assembly stuff more. Yeah.
The mask the mask I did build, but I can do like soldering and that kind of stuff. But when it comes to the other stuff, I was like, I don't know what
He says it like that's the easy part. He's like, "Well, I mean, I can just do the soldering and then like assembly. But I'm gonna." Anyway, continue.
But yeah, no, and then I just met, and she wanted Sabine like so bad, and with where we were at, the 501st members always made fun of the girls being tall Jawas, which always irritated me because I don't you don't talk to children that way. Like they did it as a joke, but when you're, you know what I mean, like, you know, kids, and I was like, so I knew they weren't going to want to be Jawas for too much longer.
Far be it from me to defend dudes, but like when they're Jawas, you can't tell who's underneath there. They think they're making fun of another grown adult who's 4 or 5.
It was funny because as soon as they stopped being Jawas, every other adult started being Jawas. Like that's what I thought, but that was the comical part. But
well,
no,
and I think another thing about like when we were doing it, like the Sabine in particular, is like you could buy a Jawa, most of the kit parts or the robe. Like you could kind of, there were places to find those costumes. Yep. But when we did Sabine and Kanan and Rebels, you had to make it. Like there wasn't anybody who was like, hey dude, I do Jawa helmets, I do Tusken Raider masks, I do 501st, I do Stormtrooper and New Hope kits.
Yep.
Like we had to,
that's the kit I built off of your direction. I mean, that's the original everything. It's the one chest plate's been
scanning, enhance.
Yeah, I know. the one plate's been repainted because she used to carry her helmet in front.
Mm-hmm.
And that I don't want to say their name because they were such a terrible bucket, but those original Sabine buckets that we have.
Yeah, the one that I have too. I have 2 of them.
Yeah, I have 2 of them too. So
look, they were the first, and they were what I needed at the time.
Yeah, no, that's
Now we rock enemy props.
Yes, enemy props is the best. I bought way more of them than I probably should have too. So,
and now look at enemy props too.
Yeah,
dude.
And Axel just got they just did the concept. And now the name has slipped out of my head, but it's one of the concepts of the original concept Boba Fett helmet that they updated with the new concept artist, Brian Mott. Yes, that's his name. So Axel has one of those that he got for his birthday from Enemy Props.
Nice.
So he needs to step it up and get to getting.
Well, but that's what got me into talking to Sal. I remember you showed me pictures of you. You had the Pre-Vizsla pistols, I think, that you painted. Were they the Pre-Vizsla?
Yeah, because it was the ones from the Clone Wars.
And we could not find them around here at all. Like they
I'm pretty sure I ordered them from a website or something back in those days. But it was like one of those things. Like I couldn't go to Halloween warehouse or what, I couldn't go to Spirit Halloween. Like they wouldn't have them. Like, because it was so low on the totem pole. It was like from a random season 2 of Clone Wars. But that's just what I had.
I took the picture that you sent me and traced it on a piece of paper and cut it out of a block of wood.
Nice. Way more durable. Although to be fair, ours have lasted.
No, but I mean that all helped me and get Zoe into Sabine because she wanted Sabine. And so that was over a year before they started podcasting.
Yeah.
Because I got her Sabine done. I want to say I got it done for Steel City Con, which we have here. So I started building it in October. So it was almost a year before she started podcasting.
Not to be confused with Steel Saunders Con.
Yes.
Was our first event the WonderCon?
So the first event that we went all in Rebels was WonderCon 2014. And that was the first Rebels panel. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we were there.
And that's
but the costumes were different because you were in Hera, Lizzy, and your mom was in Sabine. Because when the original promos for Rebels was like, meet Kanan, he's a cowboy Jedi survivor. Meet Ezra, he's a street rat, like young guy who has the Force. Like, meet Sabine, she's an artist, explosive expert, Mandalorian. Like, and that was where I had all my references to build the thing. So like, if you look at early pictures, if there are any, of little Ezra's first costume, there's nothing on the back of his vest because I didn't know there was a symbol back there. Because every promo picture he has a backpack on. It was all from the first little like the little Rebel shorts that came out first on YouTube. Right. And he has his little backpack on the whole time. So I didn't know there was a little cool symbol under there. It wasn't until like we saw the first episode and I was like, well, I got to figure this out.
Yeah, being Hera was interesting because again, I was so attached to Sabine when we first watched that. And like I didn't say anything at first, but I was just in awe of that video because we watched it as a family in my room, I think. well, it was Axel and I's room.
This room,
Yes.
how far it has fallen.
And and then immediately mom was like, oh my god, I love Sabine, she is me, I am
Right.
her. And I was like,
Like,
that is true. To be fair, mom is very artistic and likes
yeah,
a lot. Like, she literally
you guys have similar interests.
Yes. And
Then
so I
she
was like,
called it first, and she has seniority.
yeah. And I was like, okay. And
Right.
then I used to complain about being green all the time and having to wear the leku because the leku was so heavy. And she would always tell me to stop complaining. And then when she started doing Hera, she was like, oh my god, the paint and the leku, it's so much.
But she was doing it earlier than that because she was doing Ayla first.
Yeah.
So she already had the leku.
Those were
She was
skinnier
those were the same leku.
Was it the same one?
Now we ended up getting new ones for Hera that had a little more because Hera's leku kind of go out into the sides,
like pigtails.
And Ayla's kind of go back and down. I don't know how to explain this without a video podcast.
Hera, pigtails, Ayla, ponytail.
But she was already used to the leku and body paint, and Hera, she was like, well, "This is easy. It's just my face." But you were new to it, so you were just like, "This is the worst thing in my life. I'm getting sprayed with alcohol." Well, we used to use the hardcore, alcohol-based paints, and so you would have to be in the shower for an hour and a half afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't go with Hera, Zoe.
I just went with Ahsoka years later, which was much easier.
Yeah, well, that damage you did to that London bathroom or hotel bathroom.
Oh my god.
Because every towel in that bathroom was this purple and orange collage. Because I dyed my hair fresh purple right before we left, and then I also was Ahsoka and I was painted orange. So it was every
this
towel
is a scene
was
from Pulp
purple
Fiction.
and orange.
Yeah.
Oh my god. It's funny. But yeah.
And
WonderCon.
then, not related as much to Sabine, but you got into listening to Star Wars podcast, Dad. You got into listening to Star Wars podcast, just a lot of different ones. And then you were like, Zoe, you always talk about Star Wars. You should do a Star Wars podcast. And I was like, no, that's dumb. I don't want to.
Oh yeah, I was hitting you up when you were still a Jawa because we used to, when we drove out to Pittsburgh, that goes all the way across the state. So I go to get us in the Steel City Con mode. I would listen to the 501st cast. I would listen to, what was the one you were on years ago, Sal?
I don't remember, but I was on a lot.
Yeah, the one. No, but you won. Yeah, I forget the one. Yeah, and so I listened to that, and then I somehow fell on the Steele Saunders too, one of his early ones. And so I would always hit Zoe up for doing it. She did one pseudo podcast the night after the Clone Wars release. Remember, Zoe? You found that poster and recorded it all on my computer.
The Clone Wars movie?
That's not a podcast.
Yeah, the Clone Wars movie. I know, but the Clone Wars movie,
that wasn't a podcast.
I know, but I trooped the event, and they give us a Lego poster of all the characters from the movie, and it was sitting in our office, and Zoe picked it up and turned on the video recording and just it reenacted every creature, every person on the poster. I posted up.
I feel like I've seen you post this stuff before.
Yeah,
or at least excerpts. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know if you guys might. I mean, like now we're getting sidetracked into old not podcasts, but Axel was recording podcasts on his DS.
Yeah, he was.
And then Lizzy did the. Go ahead. You tell.
We had a chalk paint that my mom got us for. I want to say it was for school, but it was because she was using never mind. She was trying to test it out because she was going to law school. She ended up with whiteboard paint, but anyway. Chalkboard paint the wall, and we were just drawing stuff on it, but then Axel started doing podcasts and reviews on his DS, and so I would draw headphones onto the wall so that way when he lined up with it when he was podcasting, it looked like he was wearing headphones, and there was stuff of where to find us and blah blah blah. This is Axel. It was cute.
I remember it. It was on the wall, and it was Axel podcasting, because like when he said it, he was just like, this is Axel. Like he didn't call it, like he didn't have a name. He was just like, this is Axel podcasting, and we're going to talk about the newest episode of Rebels. And here's my special guest is my sister Lizzy. And then like she would come on and she'd be like, I like the episode. And he'd be like, fascinating.
Yeah.
But he's like, because he's 8 when Rebels comes out. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know you guys are looking back and you were like, we were so young. He was like, he was probably you guys when Clone Wars came out.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit.
He's 4 years younger than me.
Don't math it.
I was 7 when Clone Wars came out.
He was like 8.
Yeah.
So he was a little guy.
Yeah, we were the same around that age. Yeah.
Oh yeah. That was fun.
Yeah.
Times.
Yeah. So that's how me and Mike got in contact in the first place. It was costuming stuff first.
Right.
And then he ended up sending me pictures of like, hey, this is what I did for the Sabine. And I was like, oh, cool. Like everything worked out. Great. Awesome. Like I helped another person bring another Sabine into this world.
And you should have seen the pseudo Amish seamstress that sewed the costume. She had no clue what she was doing.
Sounds
Like,
interesting.
she
I
just
love that
went-
energy.
I just
Yeah.
took it to her with pictures
great.
here.
We did that once, I think. We had 2 halves of like a resistance pilot costume. And I was like, yo, can you just put this together and put a zipper in it? And they were just like, yeah, I think I can do that.
Yeah, I think for your first Sabine shirt, I took 2 Under Armour shirts and tons of photographs of Sabine.
That's
saying,
what ours
"Just
is.
Make this, and that's the woman. She did it lasted you for a while, you know.
She was like this like older woman who did she would make like dance costumes like for
Yeah.
schools and local
And she was
events,
like, she was. I don't
like
think she
little
was
girls.
Amish, but she was like close.
I think it's probably Mennonite.
Mennonite.
She was Amish adjacent.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh. I remember.
He said Amish-ish.
yeah.
Well, I remember the first. So, okay, first of all, Dad would like for our first podcast ever. Dad told me that it was a little girl, like younger than me.
Oh, that okay.
Like no, because I was whatever, we were 12, 13 at the time.
Yeah.
He told me, oh yeah, it's like another Sabine. She's like, you know, a little girl. I don't know if she's your age. I don't know. I'm pretty sure she's younger. And I was
Okay.
like, okay, that's fine.
Objection. Okay. So like, yes, the like I'd never spoken to Zoe. I didn't know. So obviously my communications was with Mike. And like every now and then, whatever like little pictures he would send me, Zoe would have a helmet. And Zoe is a person of
Tiny.
small stature. So every time he sent me a picture, I was like, oh, your 10-year-old looks awesome.
I haven't grown that
But
much since I was basically the same height I am
We
now.
know.
I'm not speaking on it anymore because now I know you. But like, so when you hit me up and was like, look, my kid's going to start a podcast thingy. I think you're like, and I was all about that because I was like, dude, we need to get more diverse voices out there. Like 2 kids who are female, like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's a cool opinion to get that there. Like how many I'm tired of just 2 dudes being like, you know what's dope about Star Wars lightsabers, dog? Like, so I was very, very excited. And I was like, Lizzy, this sounds like something really cool. You can lend your voice to something unique. Like, that's something really cool. In fact, I thought that was a strength of like our podcast was always like, we should start we're a family. That's a very unique, like we're all different ages, you know, different ages, genders, all that, like, and different, you know, like this is a really cool thing. Now it's kind of just me and Lizzy, which is still somewhat unique, but a little bit less. And now she's like grown. So we no longer fit that kid category. So like I look at our podcast description so often and it's like The Rogue Rebels, a Star Wars family podcast. And I think I need to go like a Star Wars podcasting family.
Maybe you need to babysit Steele's son a couple when you're recording next time.
That's Zoe's job. I don't get paid enough. But
Yeah, well,
I thought
okay, Dad didn't put
Zoe
it that
was
way.
a child.
Yeah.
You know, so I was like, Lizzy, this little girl wants to podcast, and like I know her dad, and they kind of made a costume modeled after, because like by that time Lizzy was doing Sabine. You know, like we had already made the switch and all that kind of stuff. So Lizzy was doing Sabine, and I was like, you guys can podcast about being Sabines, like, and Lizzy's done like so many events, and I don't like, not for nothing, like doing events in costume as a Star Wars character is kind of a really interesting and fun and hard learning crash course to get into.
Yes.
Like, I think there's a lot of things like you run into a lot of different people, and you have to like think of it all in real time. And I think that's really good. You know, like in podcasts, you can sort of just be like, cut that out, homie. I don't, you know, like, but I like that energy that you get, that ability to talk, that like to think on your feet like that. You know, like I'm a member of Saber Guild, so like primarily, like I am Rebel Legion and all that too. Well, maybe not anymore, but like
Do the census?
you know, like being out there in person, like as a member of Saber Guild, and being like, why does your lightsaber plastic? Like you got to be like, well, sir, of course this is my training lightsaber. I wouldn't bring the real thing out for a demonstration. But if you do follow your training enough, you'll get a real one soon enough. Obviously, I bring it on real missions, but this is not one of those things. I mean, you need to keep it safe for everybody.
Zoe, speaking on that though, do you remember our first? I think, when we first met, that celebration, we had a panel. There was someone that asked a certain question, and I can't remember what the question is, but I feel like we handled it pretty well. I'm trying to remember what the question was because it was like kind of an awkward question. I'm pretty sure it was a guy, and he asked if he could be Sabine, even though Sabine was a girl. And at first, like, I was like, yeah, but like I couldn't find the words to say it, and I was like, this feels like so on the spot, and we're live. So I was like, okay, yes, of course. Sabine's for everyone. Like, I don't know. It was just like whenever we go live, I think about that a lot where I'm like, okay, I gotta have every response ready and I have to like figure that out. But I don't know. That was like the first time I feel like that it was kind of an interesting question that we had to answer.
Well, that was Orlando, right?
Yeah.
Where you guys had your live thing,
Yep.
which would have been 2016, 17,
Yeah.
16.
I do not know.
I don't know. It was
I
you
think
had
it
been
would have been.
I was depending on you, Mike.
your years are
2017. I think it would have been 2017 because that's when they had like the Last Jedi panel.
okay.
Yes.
Because that was the spring before the movie came out.
Okay.
Well, also I think what's nice about hearing you guys talk is we're all in the costuming world. And I think sometimes we forget that's still such a small fraction of the fandom and people.
Yeah.
Like when
Right.
I tell people what I do sometimes, there's the look on their face is they don't even understand the words I'm saying. You know, like they're just like, what? You know, and every time I introduce
He's telling people, he's like, I only do the soldering, so it's not a big deal. I just
no, but when someone says, how was your weekend? Most of the time they're just saying that. So you just say good and walk by. And when you're like, oh yeah, well I trooped and they're like, what? You know? And Missy used to hear all the stuff about like everyone trooping because she would always stay back and just take pictures. She was never in costume. So they didn't realize she was with them. And she would hear all, and so I think the girl's voice in a podcast, all of our voices in podcasts, it does lend a perspective that we forget a lot of people don't know.
Yeah. And that's the thing that I also thought about. I was like, dude, like we do this, and that's like, yeah, you're right. It's such a niche portion of the Star Wars community, as it were.
Yeah.
And I thought that was also a unique perspective in the same way, you know. So when they first did their first podcast and we caught up with them 4.5 hours later.
Yeah.
And
that was a good sign. Although
we were like, this is a long podcast, and I was like, oh, we finished 2 hours ago. Like,
yeah.
Well, I think. Well, then after that is when we retooled the whole show, and I was just really mad that I paid all that money for internet and all that stuff that said Star Wars Geek Girl, not Star Wars Geek Girls. I was like, you know, because you know how hard it is when once you get something moving, you're like, let's not. But yeah, I was so happy when Zoe found Lizzy. I was so
just me. This is like my dad's making me record a podcast. So I'm going to sit down and talk to myself or talk to, like, you know, maybe see if I can bribe a random person into it.
Right. But I hope it was like, look, when you guys look back on the 10 years, it's mostly fun. I am sure I was a pain in the neck about it once in a while. I'm sure. I just know that about me. But I hope overall it's fun for you.
But I mean, even going back to that first thing, go ahead. Like, what do you think?
Oh, I was gonna say my reaction of the first podcast because I remember it. So we went in, right, and I was expecting this little girl wasn't a little girl, and I was like, and I don't even think my camera
Well, it was,
working,
but
or,
it
like,
wasn't.
You had a camera, but like it wasn't working. I don't remember if it was working.
I think it
And
was like the camera because it was like really bad Skype, and I think it was like whenever I had the camera on, my audio would keep cutting out or something. Like it was like to me
but
really
when you
weird.
first had your camera on, you had a Camp Half-Blood shirt, and I like looked at my dad, and I was like, like you can't see me, and this is a podcast, but I was like, oh my god, Dad, like she likes Percy Jackson,
And I was like,
yeah, and I was and then that's when like we were podcasting, and then like kind of afterwards where I was like, are we still podcasting? We were just talking about Percy Jackson the entire time. So yeah.
You should have recorded it. That could have been a special episode. Content.
Percy Jackson
I'll go
Geek Girl.
back 10 years and fix it. Hey, when season
Mhm.
2 of the show comes out, maybe we'll do Percy Jackson Geek Girl if it
There
doesn't
you go.
clash.
I need to,
with
Oh,
I
there
need
you
to
go.
Star Wars
read
film.
that, but
Number
yeah.
one most watched on Disney Plus.
You watched the TV show.
Yeah, I
Well-
did. I still really like the books. I should
Yeah.
go back to read them anyway. But yeah, the show was also good. Anyway.
And I was happy for Zoe when she found Lizzy, just because around here I feel like Zoe was slightly isolated in her Star Wars love. You know, she would have to defend her love of Ahsoka with 501st members all the time.
They were mad beefing with 7-year-old me. It was really
Yeah.
funny.
Oh,
Yeah.
I would just shake my head and think, oh, those poor bastards, when they would start arguing with her.
Yeah, like when you carry around a lightsaber, nobody really messes with you, even if it's plastic, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, but I think these guys just thought Zoe was going to just agree with them, and Zoe does not.
I'm not
Zoe
known
does
for
not
that.
Zoe does not let
Mhm.
facts go unchallenged.
Dude,
Right.
sometimes in Saber Guild, I was, no. Well, first of all, people didn't mess with me because my dad looks like that. But two,
My face.
yeah. But two, I didn't like hardcore. I did get there a little more because we were podcasting. So I was up to date on everything. At the time, Dad was reading me the comics. He was reading me the books and stuff.
Mhm.
So
This was back when my kids would accept bedtime stories, unlike Whim.
I'm gonna tell you right now, Dad, if I could pay you, I would pay you to read to me so I could fall asleep because it's so hard to fall asleep nowadays.
And I'm going to tell you this, child, you can pay me to put you to sleep.
Which way? Because I don't want to get knocked.
Give me $10. You'll figure it out. Good night.
So I was super knowledgeable about everything. So anytime someone would say something, I would be the same way. I'd be like, that's not right.
She'd be like, actually, Luke Skywalker encountered Vader on Moon 4.
So yeah, and then also going to school around that time, middle school, I want to say, like there was no one that liked Star Wars. And if they did, like Mike was saying, they didn't really know about the like costuming world. So they would be like, I like Star Wars, and be like, oh my god. So yeah, I had this costume and I went to this place, and they'd be like, you can do that? And I'm like, yeah, you can. That is a possibility.
Oh, when the girls
started the podcast, it was just a weird time for Star Wars. It was like Clone Wars had been off the air for years, and it was like Rebels had just started, but not a ton of people were watching it at season 1, or it just didn't feel like it. And like Force Awakens wasn't out yet, so like Star Wars wasn't like, it almost like wasn't back in the cultural conversation like it has been since Force Awakens came out. It was just like a weird little, for a lot of people, a weird little dead spot. Not for us, obviously, but
yeah,
for
right.
We were vibing.
Like,
we were thriving.
About Star Wars as much as they would like things that were currently coming out. And so it's like a weird spot, I think. It was nice, like find Star Wars people.
Yeah, The Force Awakens like sort of changed the whole dynamic of not even I don't want to say fan culture, but like at the same time, like the culture has changed now, like with and without Star Wars. Like people are all excited about Marvel movie, like
Right.
all of this kind of stuff has like hit the precedent. But when Star Wars came back with The Force Awakens, that's when it sort of got, we were excited for Rebels, but then when like a movie came out, all of a sudden people came out of the woodwork and it was like a crazy thing. And you know, I don't know about you guys, but over here in my neighborhood, people are fighting about going to like red carpet premieres and stuff. And it's like, what are we even talking about here? Like, we're trying to spread joy.
Yeah.
But
We were like, oh,
Dude.
he comes out.
Yeah, dude, there
Yeah.
there was one time we were at a Saber Guild meeting, and I was sitting there, already had my years in Saber Guild, and I was just sitting there, and a new person came up.
hardcore veteran at the age of 16.
Oh yeah. And some new person came up, and I was like, "Oh, hey, welcome to Saber Guild. Are you new? Have you met Robaba at the time? And they were like, "Oh yeah, I'm new, but I'm trying to get a costume. Do you know where I could get a costume ready? Do I have to make it fully myself?" And I was like, "Oh, well, you could go to what's his name? Marcus's husband
Luis.
now? Luis." And I was like, "Oh, you could go to Luis. I know he's made a couple costumes and stuff like that." And they were like, "Cool, because I heard you could get into red carpet premieres and stuff if I just have a costume." And I looked at him, I was like, "Yeah, totally. Try it." And I did not see them the next week. So that was fun.
I
think that happens everywhere in all the groups.
Yeah.
There's
it's like, oh, let's get free tickets to the $35 con. It's a bit more the Pennsylvania version of that. Not quite red carpet premieres, but
yeah. Well, there's
just a weird culture about that in general every now and then, and I don't know, because I feel like the where we live adds to it. Because I guess I feel like people fight harder for a red carpet premiere than a $35 con.
Yeah. Well, around here, the $35 con is our red carpet most of the time. You know what I mean?
Fair enough.
So,
that was an interesting thing moving here is hanging out with the Mandos, and when I did my semester of college here, and I brought out and I did a event in a park or something like that, and they're like, "Wow, we really like you. You do stuff. Do you want to come to the Andor premiere?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, sure," because it was it's just a weird because they're like, "Yeah, but we'll just try to just do the premieres," and that was a weird
Zoe,
the bar is so low.
Mandos are pretty awesome, to be fair.
True.
Zoe always needs her armor.
But I was I did one event, and they were like, "We like you."
Well, Zoe always needs her armor after she's already flown out, and I have to mail it in multiple pieces. Every time I mail a helmet, I'm just that because everything else I can redo. But man, if the helmet gets cracked or something,
yeah.
And it's this armor is flown more than some people, and it's just fine.
Yeah.
Any damage is unrelated to flying or being shipped.
And Mom was the same. I mean, of course, we all were the same way, but Mom was super, super into not going to the cons. Again, Axel and I just went wherever parents went, but Dad would sign up for all the events, which included the cons. But anytime Mom would go, it would be for the library or the hospital or for this and that. And she she would go all out too. She would bring coloring books, and she would bring balloons to make lightsabers. So that was cool stuff, I remember. And I liked. And then I remember complaining about it though when I was little because I would always want to walk around the library or walk around wherever the event was, and my mom would be like, no, you have booth duty right now. Help me pump out these balloons. And I was like, okay. So cool now.
Yeah.
At the time I was like, oh.
Well, a lot of those events are the cons, especially around here. We had for a minute, we had 2 Long Beach cons a year. Then we had a LA Comic. It wasn't LA. Not back then. It was Elvira and Stan Lee's Comic Con or whatever. Then there's Comic Con. Then there's WonderCon. So there was so many cons that were we had cons every other month at least.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them were bigger than others. I know Long Beach was a smaller con, especially because it happened twice a year. But it was one that was always a little harder to find people to man. So I remember I particularly would do a lot of booth duty at Comic-Con. Yeah. And that was the one where you would have the people come up and they'd be like, so it sucks that they destroyed Legends, huh? And I'm like, actually, I'm Quinlan Voss. I'm about to be canon, bro. So what's up? Yeah. But then you hit well, have you actually read any of the then there's all these weird nerd conversations that happen with you. And then somebody that's you're coming around my table for 5 hours out of the day. So I guess you must be okay.
Do you remember a con where someone tried to convince me that I was Bo-Katan when I
Oh,
was
yeah.
just a Sabine?
Yeah.
Mhm.
They were like, "You're Bo-Katan," and I was like, "No, I'm Sabine." They're like, "No, that's her sister. You're Bo-Katan."
No,
And I
that's
was
Satine.
Yeah,
"No."
her Zoe's first. I think was it the first time you wore the costume? We didn't have a wig and we spray painted your hair with that awful.
For the first couple months.
Sounds
it was
risky.
spray paint my
Oh,
hair.
it was hair. You know, it was the colored hairspray. It was terrible.
I think
You're messing up my joke, Mike.
I
I'm
think the helmet pad inside that helmet is still blue on the top.
Yeah.
Okay, so hold on. Back to your first episodes. When we caught up with you after, I know I caught up with Lizzy, and she was like, "Oh, I don't know. We just talked, and it was like super cool. She's really cool. Also, she's not a child, and I was scared to death." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, that one's on me." She looked like a
Zoe-
child, and I don't ask details. Mike was like, "Hey, you want to podcast with my daughter? Can your daughter?" And I was like, "Sure, man. Whatever. Get the Sabines together. It sounds like a great idea to me." You know.
Yeah, I
Which it
think
was.
Zoe was something like she had made a new friend. I mean, because Zoe, her entire life just, always was looking for friends. Like she would meet someone on the park, so she met a new friend. But my big concern was, where's this giant 4-hour file? Luckily, she had stopped the recording.
Oh.
He's like, "Oh no, the systems."
No, because I think the first couple, maybe the first 6 months, we were recording open air. We had a laptop sitting there,
like an old
recording the
laptop.
live Skype, because when I
It was like
remember
an
when
old, that laptop was like old then. It was
yeah,
Mhm.
because when you would hit the record on Skype, that's when everything would just go like nightmarish. So we were like, okay, well, let's just open up GarageBand on this old Apple and hit record and hope it goes from there.
Yeah, like it's so like I don't know, like what do you guys even do? You still record on Skype?
No, we record on
no,
this.
we use this Restream.
Yeah.
Do you get separate audio files? This is a nerd
Yes,
question.
audio and video.
Do you pay for it?
Yes, I do pay for it. You can pay. Well, see, but I used to pay to host their site on SoundCloud.
Mm-hmm.
So SoundCloud, and they had better numbers on SoundCloud when because now no one wants to give you your podcast numbers, but SoundCloud would give you pretty decent numbers. But I forget, it was like 120 or 150 a year for SoundCloud.
Yeah.
And then when Spotify and Anchor came about,
yeah,
where it didn't cost you anything.
That's what we jumped on. Yeah.
Well, that's what we jumped on. And then so I wasn't like I was rolling into money, but I was willing to pay X amount of money a year for the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I was looking for something like this to just do live. It's actually how me and Ken started our podcast by accident. I contacted
2 podcasts
friends
on the same account.
Yeah. So I said to Ken, I said, well,
one.
can you and John help me test this thing to see if it works? And now we've been doing for like 3 years the Inflatable Falcon podcast.
Well, Ken does his show on this account sometimes too, doesn't he?
Yeah. Oh,
Not
yeah.
to out Ken for our account sharing, but
yeah. I always come up as Ken and stuff.
All right, that's enough. Moving on.
Yeah. No, but I mean, it is a neat thing to see that the girls, like they're way younger than me, but they're at that cusp of technology too.
For a while.
Zoom, yeah, and we did clean.
Oh, because you guys had student accounts because you were in college.
Yes.
Yeah, my student account is was a great loss when I graduated. That was
okay. Hold on.
It started in high school because of COVID, at least for my account, and then it kept moving on to college.
Yeah, but that's worldwide.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But
I got it in college.
Yeah, you guys were doing like little kid stuff, and then college happens. Like, but you guys are podcasting throughout your high school career, pretty much.
Years of your life.
Yeah. Now, and like Lizzy, you went to a unique high school.
Oh yeah.
So you were doing extra work on top of that.
Which would also sucky because, so first of all,
I guess there's not a question in there.
I went to an art school, right? And you had to interview for this art school. And I sat down at this interview and he was like, okay, so how do you feel about like long hours at school? And and mom told me like, agree with everything, say you love everything, blah, blah, blah. It's an interview. And I was like, okay. I was like, I love it. I love school so much. I would love to stay longer, blah, 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 blah. And then like I got to the school and it was like you have to stay till 6 for your art. And I was like, oh my God. And then I like it was clicking in my head. I was like, oh my God, Zoe is 3 hours ahead of me. Like we can't podcast during my like work my not work. It was pretty much work. My school days because it's like it's gonna be 9, it's gonna be 10 o'clock over there. But yeah, that was the worry of the week, usually.
Very late night podcast.
Oh yeah.
It's high school. What else was I gonna do?
But overall, you guys did real. I think you did really well through all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like
there were phases of not being very consistent, but there were phases of being more consistent as well.
That was mostly my fault.
But that's
my fault too.
Inconsistencies aside, like even the fact that you guys were doing 20 podcasts a year.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like that's still not nothing.
And
like most big podcasts today that still do stuff, they like drop out. Like Skeleton Crew's over. We're not going to see him till April.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you guys go through even when there's no shows on. And you guys find something to talk about, even if it's JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Yes. That was a bizarre podcast.
That was a fun one. Certainly bizarre.
Well, and I would encourage both of you to go listen to some of your old, take an episode, just a small piece of one of your old ones and talk about that on the show. Because when I had to go through and remove all that stupid music when that radio show wanted to broadcast your show. But it was fun listening to your old shows again. It was not fun that I deleted all the GarageBand files and had to go take the music out other ways, but
fun. I like all of these time, like when I started the pod, like, cause now we do a family podcast, the Rogue Rebels podcast.com, the Rogue Rebels everywhere at socials. But like when you like part of the reason that I started doing it for myself was because I wanted that time capsule to be available everywhere, and Anchor makes it easy, right? But like I can go back and I can hear what you guys sounded like when you were 12, 16, 17, 18. Like I'm always going to have that.
Yep.
Like, and theoretically in the future, like as long as the internet lasts, which may not be very long, you will have that. You know what I mean? Like you will always have this thing of like, this is when all the family sat down in Axel and Lizzie's room for one reason or another and recorded. And mom said, please cut that part out.
Oh yeah. Podcasting with mom is so fun though. Every time, literally, I don't know if you kept it on the other podcast we had with mom, but she literally like, we're like, okay, like mom, we don't want to have to like edit this too much. And she's like, okay, let's get this beep on the road. And then we were like, mom, no.
Oh, now I'm using Riverside now. And it like automatically transcribes the audio. So I find it like way easier to edit because I can literally like highlight portions of the audio and delete it. Like, and it'll do that. Like it's a, like I'm kind of, and plus I have a soundboard that is extra fun. My family loves it. They're like, can you use the soundboard more? And I'm like, I do
like your soundboard.
I'm glad to hear that. That's another satisfied listener.
I do enjoy the soundboard.
So like, but like, you know, like, especially us that have been doing this, like, especially you kids, you guys have been doing this for like so long. You get on the thing, you're on your game, you know how to go, and you theoretically like podcast through. I know like me and Lizzie now, we found our groove, we found our energy, and we can sort of like, okay, let's go. Boom. Let's knock it out. Boom, 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 boom. And I think like she was just talking about her interview with the school, like being on your feet and talking, like this is all like, I feel like it's helped you grow as a person. I can't speak for Zoe, but I feel like I've seen you be able to articulate yourself more. Like you choose your moments, you find your places. Like I'm not there with you at work or wherever else you are in your life, but I can see how you talk. I can see how you talk to people and how you articulate what you're feeling or seeing or needing. And I don't know if it's because of the podcast, but I feel like the podcast helped you with that.
I do remember you complaining that I was getting too witty for my own good, and that you were blaming the podcast for that because there was a whole thing at Sabergold going on, and someone was being kind of ableist, and this was at the time where Dad had pulled his your Achilles, and so Dad was in crutches.
Oh, I tore it.
Yeah. Well, it was hanging by a string. Yeah.
Well, the string was
So-
what was left of it.
Oh yeah. So anyway, he was coming to Saber Guild in crutches, and like there's that meme that Zoe made. It's like he has a crutch, but it's like lightsaber.
but it's a lightsaber.
That was so good. And like you were also running for the lead of Saber Guild too. And there was a certain person who I will not name, but whatever, that was also running for lead, and like he didn't win. Dad won. Congrats, Dad. But and I remember that guy. Like I went up to him and I was like, hey, congratulations anyway. Like your assistant is still an accomplishment, I was trying to be nice. And then this guy looked at me and was like, yeah, well, and previously he was talking about how Dad should not be in Saber Guild because he's in crutches, that he can't teach people properly. Like he can't teach people how to do kicks and stuff, which I've seen this guy's kicks. Horrible. But anyway, so this guy came
The
up to
kicks are
me.
amazing.
This guy came up to me afterwards and was like, yeah, well, your dad won. So like I was supposed to win, and I was like, well, he beat you in crutches. So he did not like that.
With one leg tied behind my back.
Well, how has
Wait.
the podcast, like to add to Sal's thing, like do you feel like the podcast has helped you in any way? Just so me and Sal can get credit for some of it. In
You
life.
go first, Zoe.
Don't forget to thank us in the acknowledgments.
Make this professional, Zoe.
I mean, yeah, I think it's hard because I think sometimes, at least for me, like, it feels weird to say when I have a podcast, but I can be very quiet in many social situations and just kind of like drift to the back. So I think, like, in that sense, and especially like I have a roommate, but like we have very different schedules. Like I'm not. Besides, I mean, now I give chores at work, but like besides that, like before this, like I wasn't talking a lot. Like there wouldn't be any other avenue where I'd just be like talking and explaining things. And so I think kind of like having an avenue to weekly or bi-weekly or monthly or whenever be podcasted, to just like have like kind of a long form and like explain my thoughts on something and discuss that with someone who may or may not agree and like work through that and kind of interpret things that way. I think it did help kind of learning how to talk and have that confidence in myself and being a bit more articulate and learning how to communicate, I think, for sure. And something I'm very grateful for, because I was always like in school and they were like, oh, like give a presentation on something, and I was always like, this is the worst thing that could ever happen to me, is to have to get up in front of a bunch of people and talk about something. But now I do that every day at work, and I think having the podcast and doing the panels and stuff was a big part of like, no, I can talk about something, and I can explain my thoughts, and I can have those discussions and interpret things, and so I think that part of it for sure.
And the credit goes to
The credit
This
goes
side
to
of the screen. Down here.
I have always been like social, like in high school especially, because it was a new school. I didn't go to the school that everyone else in middle school was transferring to, where all my friends were. So high school was like super, super different, and I was always super quiet. And while that still kind of is the case, I feel like Star Wars is something, like, especially podcasting about it all the time, is something that I'm more confident in. And it's a topic, because if I'm confident in a topic, like, I'm going to argue about it. Like, or like, talk about it. And, I'm going to know usually. Not anymore, because I haven't caught up with any literature. But
you have done that yourself.
But like, I remember in college, like there would be people that would be like, there was like one instance where someone was like, oh yeah, Andor comes out this day. And I looked at him and I was like, no, it doesn't. And he was like, yeah, it does. Like literally just look it up. And I was like, first of all, I have to podcast about this tomorrow. Second of all, yeah, okay. And I looked it up and I was right. And I was like, so like I feel like my confidence in the topic has definitely been good. And what we were saying before, I feel like I've been a little quicker on my feet. Slightly
Third of all,
quicker.
I've been in the fight since I was 6 years old.
Yeah, and just like with Saber Guild and like just the costuming groups in general, it's been really cool, and I feel confident when I'm in Sabine, and I like being there for the kids. Like, you know, even when there was one time I put my helmet down and I heard a loud like and I heard an uh-oh, and I was like I turned around and this poor child like had picked up my helmet and dropped it, and nothing broke, but it was horrifying. Like
And props for the win.
I love these kids. The kids are just adorable, especially when they know who you are. That's the best. Like they're not like, oh, it's a pink Sabine.
Pink Boba Fett.
Pink Boba Fett.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm incorrect. So my bad.
I was there too.
Yeah.
Actually, they would call me Boba Fett because I was in green. What the?
You had one piece of armor.
Yeah.
I also think it's always nice, even now, to have like an outlet for your Star Wars thoughts in a sense, because sometimes, when a new comes out, a new book, or someone's having a conversation about Star Wars, and it's like, like that, and it's like, oh, I want to talk about Star Wars because I care about it, and it's fun for me, and I enjoy talking about it, but I don't want to talk about it with this person or something like that. Mm-hmm. And so it's nice to like have like, I know, like, new episode of a new show, new something comes out, I know that I can go to my friends who I like and enjoy. Not necessarily, it's not about agreeing with things. Like, we disagree on the podcast all the time on our interpretations and stuff. But it's not, but it's in the sense of like someone who I respect their opinion, even when I don't feel the same way, and someone who I know will respect me, and like we'll be able to have like a discussion. Because sometimes, like, you have someone who, like, without the podcast, like, maybe my outlet for a new Star Wars show to talk about it is someone who's like just like a hater of something, and like, oh yeah, I didn't watch it because I thought it looked dumb or something. You know what I mean? So it's nice to be like, have someone I know is as passionate as me to talk about these things.
And I think there's like something else about the way that you guys are very multifaceted in your fandom. You do the costuming, and you do the art, and you do the like podcasting. Like, there's so many people who like, specifically in this podcast space, who are like, I'm a Star Wars podcaster, and I guess like now there's like TikTok and stuff. So yeah, you're probably making videos and little reactions or something like that too. Like, I'm not trying to like downgrade TikTokers or whatever, but I'm just saying, like, there's this weird place that you guys were doing these multifaceted approaches to Star Wars fandom back in the days when people were like one things, or like, you were a costumer, cosplay, like you were in the 501st and that's pretty much all you did. Right. Or you were a podcaster and that's all you did, or you had a Star Wars fan blog and that's all you did, or you know what I mean? Like, you guys were sort of coming at this from at least two directions in days where that wasn't very common.
Right.
And I think that's very like interesting, because now it seems like it feels like it's very common. Like it like the culture is sort of shifted into where you can just, type in something cosplay and probably buy a whim cosplay on Etsy or some, you don't like back in our day, we had to research everything and make it ourselves and figure it out. And, Mike's really good at soldering, I heard.
But like, need some light up eyes.
Yeah. Like, but now you can probably just go and like type in, hey, Inquisitor, and like, boom, you're like ready to do with your thing. And then you can like make a TikTok about it. And then you can have a song about it or make a little dance video. Like, now there are all these multifaceted approaches on the fandom that don't necessarily, I don't know. I just feel like when you guys came at it, it was so much more divided.
Right.
As in the ways that you could approach it. Yeah, like you were in one column or you were in the other column.
Yep.
And when you guys came at it, you were in two. And that, like, I feel the same way. Like, when I started podcasting, I was already a costumer. And I was already into reading all the books and stuff, although that's not a column, I don't know. But, like, you guys started in that place too. Like, and I thought that was, like, very interesting. And I feel like you guys were closer, more adapted to whatever the next step is, and even now as adults, you guys still do kind of both of them sometimes where you need to update some Sabine stuff.
Well,
but like, yeah.
Yeah, well, Sal, you were even your earlier podcast when the Star Wars podcasters still looked at you not weird, but it was a weird thing to them to be talking to. You were like a special guest costumer sometimes. Like they didn't understand when I would listen to some of your podcasts, your early podcast. Like it was
right. Because it's just like such a different and it's something that's also like it's cool, and it like costuming is such a in-person thing. Yeah, it's hard to translate that. So when you're like doing a podcast, it's hard to describe how you were at an event dressed as a person. Like, you know what I mean? Like it almost doesn't translate what really happens when you're there. You know what I mean? Like, so I feel like those are columns that not only are they separate columns, but they're like columns that are pretty far away from each other in the spectrum of things to do.
Well, and I also think a lot of people don't think they can do it. Like if you talk to someone, you probably talk to them too. Like you're like, they talk about podcasts. You're like, well, then just try it. Like try, and they act like, oh no, I can't,
Sand it down, bro. 220.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ask Mike about the soldering.
And
oh my gosh.
Well, and I never thought I would costume ever. I think because when Phantom Menace came out, Missy and I had tickets for, opening day, and she was going to put her hair in Leia buns. And I was like, don't do that. I don't want people to think we're one of those weirdos that dress up. My exact quote.
Oh, no.
Missy. He said,
that's
Missy,
not from
calm
Army
down.
of Darkness.
He said, Missy, keep the sugar in the house.
No, and some of them, I think of some of the funny things. Like I think of the girls' podcast. I can't say there's a favorite episode, but I think of some of the episodes over the last 10 years, like that stand out is your episode about inclusion that you did, and I remember because you were doing it at the pool when we went out to LA for the first time, when we drove out to LA. And you guys did, and you did an episode on that. I remember when you had Maddie on, and your mother got Maddie and
and Victoria mixed up.
She thought Maddie's arm fell off.
Yeah, before celebration, like, oh, we have to fix Victoria. Her arm fell off. Victoria.
And so my wife thought the poor girl's arm fell off.
And so I was like, oh, Victoria's arm. And my mom thought Victoria was Maddie.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Okay, hold on. Rewind all of that because I want to get back to you guys had been caught. We said it was 2017, which was Orlando. That is the first time that you guys met in person.
Yes.
Like, I want you guys to kind of go through that. Like, that was the look. So you guys started in 14 or 15? Let's just say 15. You guys had already been podcasting for at least 2 years.
Yeah, they started in, I think, early October of 2015.
See, Mike, with the dates and soldering.
Well, we said we were gonna meet up, and I think it was Dad and I don't remember if Axel went. I don't know.
No, we were all together. Like when you guys physically met, we were all together.
Because we were wandering the streets of
well, we were walking out to meet them halfway.
Yeah.
From our B&B to their hotel.
Yeah.
Like we went out and hit the streets and we were looking out for water because we heard there were alligators.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just saw like, was it just you? It was you, Safi, and Mike?
Yeah, I don't know if Missy was with us because I think she was on the phone about her
celebration, but I think she was still in the hotel. I don't think she.
Right.
Yeah.
I just saw 3 figures and I was like, I think that's them, Dad. I think that's them. And then we hugged in the street, which probably wasn't for the best, but it's okay.
Right, yeah. I was worried about the alligators and then my kids ran into the street.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Safi was probably wearing jet black in the middle of the night too. So
And to be fair, so was I.
Yeah.
Back to Airbnb, you made ratatouille, which I know was a real food. I saw it in the movie. And then we played hide and seek, and I hid in a cabinet.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I was like, "No way, you fit in there, dude!" Like, why?
No one found me.
I just remember you guys.
I thought she was younger.
I just remember when you guys saw Holly Fry, and we got pictures with her, and you were all excited to see Holly Fry, and you just blew off E.K. Johnston that was sitting there next to her talking.
Just the book.
No, I know. I just thought that was funny.
Yeah. Mistakes are made. Okay?
Mike's just taking pictures like.
I'm like, oh man.
It's very much that like they don't even know meme.
I know. Well, I mean, that might have made her help her with the better book the next time. But see, that's where podcasting is kind of fun because, like, sometimes I'd rather meet some of the podcasters. Like, I remember the first time I met Mike Pilot. He's just a podcaster from Full of Sense. I was just happy to meet him more than some of the other more famous people. Because the podcasters are in your house every week or whenever you listen to them.
I think the funniest part, like that kind of experience, we were at I think it was at Ashley Eckstein's signing for her book, or not her book, the Ahsoka book. And there was, and Mom was there, and like we were all there, and this tall guy came behind Mom and was like, Liz, and like gave her a hug and everything, and my mom was like, oh, hi. Who are you? And he was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm Steele Saunders.
He was like, you don't know me, but I'm from Australia.
And she was like, oh, you're Sal's friend. Scary moment for Mom, but silly things like
right.
that.
And Steele is like very tall, just for context.
Yes.
In this story in particular, this very tall white man walks up to her and hugs her.
But he's
you Liz.
He's an example of just the podcasting community that has been so kind to you guys.
Oh yeah. I did want to talk about how like this podcast though, I feel like opened up really cool opportunities. I mean, like one that I think about is like oh my God, my brain. The Star Wars show, where they were like recording our families. Like we had one on our family, and then Zoe had one on
our Star Wars stories.
Our Star Wars stories.
And on StarWars.com.
Yeah, there we go. And I thought that was cool. Although so this was, I feel like, the first time that we could see comments, because on our podcast, like we don't see comments, or at least I don't see them.
What happened was I was in the hospital in Mexico. This was after my surgery, so I actually got to respond to comments.
Oh my God.
People were like, these are actors, and I was like, well, yes, but no.
But that was the funniest thing, because again, like the first rule when we did this, because they were like, yeah, we're gonna post it on YouTube, my mom was like, don't read the comments, don't respond to the comments, don't read them. And I was like, okay. And then I didn't really have a phone, like a real phone. It was a very restricted phone. So when I went to school, they gave us computers. So I looked it up and I looked through the comments and I was looking at them. And then I was like, what the heck? Like, why is it like there was so much like hate? There was some really good ones too, like very kind and like adopt me, like funny ones. And I was like, that's so cool. And then I was just like the hate ones. I was like, oh my God. Like, and especially I didn't have TikTok or any social media at that point. So I was like, people are horrible. And that was also the time where like Mom told me that she was looking at the comments too. And she was like, yeah, they're so mean. Lizzy, what does MILF mean? And I was like, no, Mom, like you don't want to know. And she was like, what is it? Why are you keeping it from me? Like, I was like, no, please. And I was like begging her. I was like, please don't make me tell you. And
why didn't you record that discussion?
So then, yeah, we did have that discussion.
Rogue Rebels After Dark.
Yeah,
the family discussion. Well, yeah, Zoe's comments on that ran after the Cara Dune mess.
Oh,
so they used hers and a bunch of the others of season 2. It was just bots doing the same
Right,
thing.
right.
And I was the same way. I was like reporting them a while because I was just angry because we were stuck home with COVID. So I was teaching a room of nobody showing up. So I'm just,
So that was when
Hold on,
ours
class,
came
I
out.
gotta respond.
Yeah, when ours came, I was like, that was literally when I just got surgery for my leg when I tore my Achilles. So I was in Mexico, in bed, with nothing else to do but read comments, and then being like, "This fool's an actor." But what if I'm real?
Yeah.
No, you're not. You're going to. It's me. This is my face.
It's giving like when Wendy's responds to like people's posts and comments.
Yeah, like very much of like that kind of. And then there was like all this like random it's all the stupidest stuff, right? Because it's like, and then they saw The Last Jedi, ha ha ha.
Yeah.
Like,
it
real
was
good.
like that, and then you were getting hate because
they were calling me a racist because I mentioned that like I was like, because I was very much like Luke Skywalker is my favorite character as a child, but like he never looked like me. I never felt like Luke Skywalker. But now you have characters that kind of do, even though they're in comic books, in a really cool book called Dark Disciple. And like, but now there's like space Mexicans, more of them. But like, and then they were like, "Oh, y'all racist. He didn't like think he was Luke or whatever." I don't know why I tore my Velcro.
No, but that's the replies to that stuff was terrible. But it does say something.
As you do.
Comments too. There are a lot of very nice ones.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. Like it's as human beings, we tend to focus on the bad ones, but the good ones were so nice. Because I love that show. I would because it was hard for me to keep my mouth shut when they came to our house. So I had to watch all the other shows to keep my mind occupied so I wouldn't run my mouth.
Yeah.
I had friends that worked on the show, and they were like, "Mike is our best. He's better than our PR." I think he shares our stuff out more than we like do it on the official accounts. But yeah, I had nothing but time. I was literally sitting in the hospital bed, and I was like, "Well, what's up then? What you gonna do about it?"
Well,
I recover in 6 weeks.
We lucked out because Marty, a friend of mine, is a professional photographer. So when they were coming, and he's friends with Jordan because he's done some Chewbacca work for Jordan, I was like, "Marty, you should just come down." So after Zoe's show, anytime when they won awards and everything, they had to use pictures from Zoe's episode, even though it had nothing to do with it.
That's
nice.
So cool, though. Oh man.
So
we
even
were in the newspaper one time.
Hmm?
I don't know. I was thinking. I was like, "What? Like else had happened?"
One time. You were in the Lancaster newspaper twice for the teen section or something, but they didn't make a digital copy, which is that's typical Lancaster newspaper thinking that the teenagers are going to go buy the paper at the.
Yeah, bro, you got to go to the microfiche on that.
Yeah. But
so now you are fully grown adults, and not only that, you guys live on the same coast now.
Yes.
Like, how has that dynamic changed? Like, I know Lizzy, like you went to college over there, and you guys were a lot closer. So you guys like could see each other a little bit, but now you guys are like,
it's
pretty
funny,
close.
We didn't really see. Oh my gosh, sorry, my stool's broken. We did.
She just goes down.
On the East Coast because we were still hours away from each other and always very busy, and we were both on the East Coast.
Right.
Because I had college and then I would work crazy hours over the summer, and then you had college year round. So it was like it wasn't like a lot of people in college are like, "Oh, we both have our summer break. Let's go hang out."
And it was also still kind of mostly COVID times for that a lot too. We didn't even get to go to Lizzy's college till she graduated.
Yeah.
Like that was a little funky. We couldn't take her to school because there was like a 2-week quarantine for California because we were a high risk state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At one point, Zoe was on the West Coast and Lizzy was still back
here.
Right.
A little college where I was over here.
Then Lizzy was in Florida for a hot minute. It was all over the place.
Oh yeah. Taxes were great.
Yeah, now we're on the same, which is crazy. Like, because I'm talking about we met because our dads messaged about a Star Wars costume. But I moved here. I moved across. Even before I moved, I got a call. I was literally playing Fortnite, and I got a call from Paramount Pictures, and they're like, "Hey, can you come in for an interview next week?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, I can do that." And then I immediately text Lizzy, I'm like, Can I crash at your place? Job interview in California next week.
Oh
And,
yeah.
but yeah, it's like it's crazy to think like I moved across the country. Like I'm not, everyone I'm related to, like blood wise, is in Pennsylvania, basically. And I moved to California, but because of Star Wars, because of this podcast, I have a community. I had someone who picked me up from the airport and dropped me off in my new apartment, and everything. Even my apartment I found because of a friend through Star Wars'
Yeah.
wife's,
Twice
crazy
removed.
connection. Yeah.
My cousin's roommate's
Good.
brother's sisters-in-law.
It's pretty
Yeah.
close to that. Well, also, if you listen to, I highly recommend listening to some of your old episodes. But if you listen and you talk about when you guys were younger, talking about your goals, you both followed the paths you wanted to. There's not
Yeah.
many young people that can say that. I think I wanted to be a truck driver, an
I'm just
orthodontist,
stubborn.
and a
Mhm.
couple other things in
You were a
that
truck
time
driver
span.
for a little bit.
Yeah. This is like the end of Mr. Deeds if it went right for everybody.
Yeah.
Lizzy, you are a chef.
No. Dude,
You
okay.
work in a kitchen, bro.
We went to the Skeleton Crew premiere, and Dad saw someone from his work, or whatever, and I was and they came up to me. They're like, "Oh, Lizzy, you're Sal's daughter. You're a chef." And I was like, I'm not a chef. I'm a cook. I mean, like, I would like to be a chef one day.
The chef's in here.
Yeah.
The chef's in here.
You got it.
It's
You got
up
the
here.
degree. You got the degree that says
Yep.
you're a chef. Oh,
Yep.
it's in your hat. It's
yeah, it's in
Ratatouille.
my rat hat. Yeah. That I wear at
Anyone can
work.
cook.
Hey, don't worry. I would brag about Zoe at our yard sales.
I think it's a dad's job to do that.
I got in trouble in the 501st for promoting my kids too much.
Oh my goodness. That's I don't. Oh my
I don't even want to respond to that. Zoe,
Yeah.
you're living your dream. How's life going?
god.
I'm working. I don't know if I'm living my dream, but I'm working on it.
Look, you're further along on the path, right?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I
Like,
work at a
it
film
takes time to get
studio.
there.
I drove. I don't know. if
Yeah,
it's
you work
sales
at
on the
you work at
internet.
Paramount
I don't
Pictures.
know if it's a sales on the internet, but I drove Kiki Palmer on a golf cart yesterday.
Yeah, there you go.
And you didn't flip it. Awesome.
I did not
Sick.
flip it. I've
I
not
would've hit a
flipped a golf
tree.
cart. I've hit a few things.
Oh.
I've hit like one thing.
Wow.
Hey, Kiki,
But
we're
I'm-
going to a flip.
But not
and she
not
get-
with
and she-
Kiki
and-
on it.
And
Kiki,
you
hold
get
on.
don't you get good parking once in a while because the people can't
I
drive
get good
stick?
parking on the weekends because the important people get first preference for parking. So when the important
Right.
people are at work, then I have to park in the garage half a mile away.
Right, but I
But
didn't want.
When on the
didn't-
weekends and holidays, I get to park in the important people spot.
But didn't once
So
they
not the
couldn't
super important. But...
they couldn't valet your car because they didn't know how to drive stick.
Oh yeah, when they ran out of room, they valet cars and they couldn't do mine because I pulled up and they're like, okay, we're to have to do valet because we're all full right now. And I goes, okay, it's stick. Is that okay? And they go,
Mhm.
I think there's a spot in the corner over there.
They said, what is this
Yeah,
ancient
okay.
technology?
Oh yeah.
So, like, where do you think you guys will be in another 5 years, 10 years? Like, this podcast has gone for 10 years, which is longer than many, not even podcasts, many endeavors go
Right.
for most people's lives. 10 years is not quite half of your lives. It's pretty close.
5
Yeah.
years.
I don't know, man.
Like, will the world even be here in 5 years? I don't know. But if it is,
If it is, what will you be doing? Podcasting through the wastelands?
I mean, I feel like we'll still be podcasting.
Yeah, I have no plans to not.
Like, I mean, I feel like we'd still be podcasting. I would hope that I have at least a sous chef position at that point. Like, obviously the goal is chef, but to be realistic, probably sous chef. So maybe times might get pretty busy. I mean, they kind of do like 12-hour shifts and stuff. So
Yeah.
it would probably be podcasting, but I don't know. It's a lot. So podcasting and sous chef, that's the goal in 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Zoe?
I don't know, man.
Directing your first Star Wars film.
I don't.
She
5
said
years
driving
is,
stick
is
shift.
a little. I know. I already do that.
I know. But it just meant with authority. I don't know. It was a bad joke. You didn't have to call me out on it.
Okay,
Dang.
I'm sorry.
That's what I get.
Yeah,
This damn new generation.
I mean, podcasting and maybe still at Paramount, maybe another studio, but somewhere in that world still. Who
Good.
knows? It's a big
Mhm.
industry.
That would be
Many
cool
paths.
to do different studios.
Any guests on the horizon for your show?
So I don't want to say anything before I've reached out to anybody, but I reached out to someone. I need to talk to you about scheduling it.
Oh,
Lizzy.
okay.
I'm reaching out to
Heard.
someone tomorrow. I wrote the email today and I was like, it's Sunday, so I scheduled it to send tomorrow.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant
we
like
did just
tomorrow we're doing it tomorrow. I was like, oh
No,
okay.
no,
I can,
no.
but
No. And then we just had Kristen Baber on. That was really
Yeah, that
fun.
was a good one. That was good.
Mhm.
That one was just because Kristen Baber is very, very busy because she has many responsibilities. That was such a nightmare to schedule.
I just ran into
How we moved, and then but that was really fun. And maybe we'll get more authors in the future. I think I would enjoy that, but nothing's concrete right now, guest wise.
we should try Dave Filoni.
But I do want to give shout out to DK Books for working with the schedule because we started scheduling that in like months prior, and then we had to work it out, and we made it work because it was just all over the place for everybody.
I don't have to badger people as much as I used to.
No
They
shit.
just know you
Yeah,
by
yeah.
now.
Y'all are grown. Y'all got to take care of it on your own now. What about costumes? Are you guys going to learn to solder?
Oh my goodness.
I've been solder modes. I'd like to learn to sew. That would be a fun goal in 5 years.
I was going to say you could go to Joann Fabrics and take class, but I think they're all going out of business.
No.
Yeah, but my problem is right now I don't have a place to like paint. Is the thing. Like I do like spray paint in my park.
Yeah, you got to like wait for that Mando build party and then just like head over there with all your paints.
You could always come. We have a garage. We also have a 3D printer that we haven't figured out how to get to work. So
what kind you have?
I don't know. I don't figure it out.
It's Creality. They have the Creality 3.
Oh yeah. Well, if you have any questions, you guys just send me an email or something. I can maybe help.
Because we bought it off of a friend, and Chris has more of the details, but like it's just a little 3D printer. It's not that big. But we also have all the filament and stuff for it already. Just need to figure out how to work it. And I have a PC now, so now I could like figure that out.
Yeah, well, tell him to send me pictures if he has problems and stuff. I just got rid of my Creality, but I had one for 10 years and it always worked. So
perfect. But
any cubic all the way, buddy. You any cubic.
Zoe, do you have any costumes you want to work on? Because mine is Sabine, and that's been an ongoing thing for a few years now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any of the stuff over here on this side of the country, but live action Sabine. Because I think while I prefer animated Sabine, live action Sabine does look more comfortable.
It looks so much more comfortable, but my pride. My pride
but also
is Rebels.
Season 4 Sabine, so that I can just have all of them, because that's the only Rebels one I'm missing.
Well, live action's all printed and ready to be painted as soon as it's not 20 degrees out here.
Zoe, we should do. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I've been wanting to do a Visions costume for so long, right? I don't know which one.
Ooh.
Literally just.
I did an F costume.
Yes.
It's on the East Coast.
Okay.
But I had one.
I can't remember.
Seems like that one might be cheap to ship.
Yes, that one would be. Yes.
I can't remember what the I'm gonna go back and watch them all again because like they're amazing. But we should do the sisters, the bunny sister, and then like the
Lapanocho.
Yeah.
Actually, I remember Visions came out, I was like, oh, I wonder if I could figure out how to do a bunny costume for Lop.
We should do that.
But then I never did.
Because I'm evil.
I know who makes that lightsaber, but I think it's expensive.
Yeah. Oh,
that lightsaber looks crazy.
No, I want to be Lop.
That's what I
wasn't
figured.
sure if
Okay,
you wanted
cool.
to be Lop. Okay.
Evil.
Zoe just got a
think-
got a new lightsaber.
I did.
Ooh.
I got the live action Sabine lightsaber, and I've been scared to mess with it because I've been waiting until I see Sal. That's not a
There are
joke.
no lightsabers in this
Speaking
room. Who
of,
built this place?
I accidentally forgot to give you one of your lightsabers, so it's here. So whenever we have movie night.
Oh, I
Yo, I
did
got-
leave my lightsaber.
Yeah.
Never mind.
That was my bad.
That lightsaber was recommended by Rob, so I just went to the master. That
Do you know who the maker is?
I don't know. Whatever he
It says
uses,
saber on it.
whatever.
It came in a black box and it says saber.
I had
That's all
talked to
know.
Neo
Rob.
Saber?
It
What
just
is
says saber in
No, not Neo
Arabic.
Saber.
It's a black box, and on gold
Okay.
it was saber in Arabic.
Well, it's the Sabine version of the live action Sabine.
Yeah.
one, and I just contacted Rob, and
He used to use Vader's vault for everything. I don't know if he still does.
I don't think it's a Vader's vault. I don't
Okay.
think it's.
Well, because
yeah.
I was at LA Comic Con and I was looking at one of the I don't think it was Vader's vault. It was one of the those lightsaber stands, and I was looking at the Sabine saber, and I mentioned it to Rob, and he was like, "Those guys mark up the price. I'll get you it."
Yeah.
I haven't
Sweet.
seen it. I just it was one of her
It's
Christmas
gorgeous.
presents, so.
Mhm.
It's gorgeous. But I'm
Nice.
scared because it has the tiny little screws to put the blade in, and I'm terrified of losing them. So I took it out of the box and looked at it. I'm like, this is so nice. Okay.
Yeah. We'll have to do that one day. But I think to
Yeah.
wrap things up, 10
Well, can I-
years.
I'm sorry. Can I make one suggestion about costumes? You girls should
Absolutely
do-
not.
Ladies, I'm sorry. I'm going to say it anyway. You guys should do custom Mandos, but base them on the twins from the old G.I. Joe cartoon.
G.I. Joe.
Remember the
I've not
Zard? Was
seen
it
this.
that they were like counter? I think they were reflections of each other. Is that what they were? Sam?
That cut is deep.
The closest I've gotten to watching that cartoon is the episode of Community that was like a cartoon. So
Yeah. Well, that pretty much Community does. That's pretty much how every episode was.
Huh. Honestly, if I was going to do a Mando costume that wasn't Sabine, I would probably do one of the ones with the cherry blossoms on it because I was sick.
Glenn,
I
Vizsla.
would do.
Yeah.
I've already
The
I
black
have
and white
two
ones?
drawings of custom Mandos that I want. I want a Loth Wolf Mando with a big white cloak, and then I want a Purrgil Mando. It's all purple and red and blue.
That's sick. By the way, did you guys see the preview screenshots for the last half of season 2 of Young Jedi Adventures where there are Purrgil?
Yeah. Oh, there's Purrgil and there's a big Nubs. There's grown up Nubs.
Yes,
Are they
there's a
gonna
grown Pooba.
And he's
They're going to
so
make an action
he's-
figure of a Purrgil. That's what I want.
Well, because I remember when Young Jedi Adventures first came out, because Safi's wanted to do a Gunji costume for a long time. And she was like,
Yeah.
maybe instead of Gunji, I'll do like a grown-up Nubs. But we didn't know if Nubs was going to get big or if he was going to stay
Yeah.
small. Because then I was like, well, Safi does like a grown-up
Mhm.
Nubs. I could do like a grown-up Liz.
Yeah,
But-
her net suit is almost done for her Gunji, but 000 takes too much maintenance.
Hmm.
This
You
and
give
I
him
have
some
that thing
blue
called a
fur
job.
instead of brown fur, give him little ears, and then it's Nubs.
You know, it'd be funny if Axel did a Neil costume, but he had like sleeveless. He was just like buff
Buff
and
Neil.
painted.
Jacked Neil.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, like overalls with no shirt on?
Yeah. And he
But
has
does
like
he,
little
does he have like
tusks
the
or
busted
something.
face like Neil's dad? He's all scary
Yeah.
looking.
He's scary.
Neil's dad was
Sorry,
holding
Neil's
it down
dad-
at home, though.
Neil's dad's scary. He was.
Hashtag Neil's dad. But yeah. 10 years. Thank you, fathers, for
Yeah, thank
joining
you
and
for coming on
Mhm.
the.
telling our
podcast.
story once again.
Yeah.
Or the start of our story, I guess. I want to
Right,
say.
right. Honestly, I think me and Mike did amazing.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was pretty proud of us. We'll
For
do
sure,
the
one of your
second
best
10 years.
episodes.
We'll do the second 10 years.
Yeah.
Catch y'all in
well,
10.
well, probably we could do the 5 years. So that way we
2035.
What we're doing.
Well, you
how
could
we're
have us
doing.
on more than once every decade.
Okay, well, it's true.
Look, I gotta check my schedule. Just hang back a minute.
I had to clear Dad's schedule. I had to call Mom and be like, "Hey, can I have him for 7:00?" She'd be like, "Okay, sure." And then like I was like, "Hey, Mom, I'm so sorry. Could I have him for 5:00?" She was like,
I just
If
want to
you
see you get your
must.
moms on.
That's what I was thinking.
That's what I
That
wanna
might be
see.
a little harder.
Mom,
But
that might be harder, but that might be a good Mother's Day.
Well, I'm gonna let you produce that.
Mhm.
I will call my mother and make an appointment
That
with
one will
her.
have to be early, so my mom doesn't have to stay up as late.
Yeah, don't have her clear my schedule. Have her clear her own.
Well, she has to clear your schedule. She's in charge of her own schedule.
Oh, I gotta press
pretty much.
record. I'm like Mike. I gotta solder this
Oh
thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So soldering works, right?
I was gonna say,
Thank
is that
you-
your
Something like that,
solder?
Thank you guys so much for coming on. It's really fun. For listeners, make sure you check out all your other favorite Star Wars podcasts for their special Star Wars Podcast Day episode. Make sure you check out Star Wars Geek Girl on StarWarsGeekGirl.com, on Twitter and Blue Sky at SW Geek Girl, Instagram at SW Geek Girl, and Facebook is Star Wars Geek Girl.
For the Rogue Rebels, you got the RogueRebels.com, Instagram and TikTok at the Rogue Rebels, Twitch at Rogue Rebels Podcast, wherever you're listening to Star Wars Geek Girl, Facebook page The Rogue Rebels, Twitter and Blue Sky at Rogue Rebels Fam.
Need to
False.
update these graphics.
Well,
Blue
but I
Sky
don't
is at the Rogue Rebels.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I need to
Oh,
update these
man.
graphics, but I don't have Canva Pro anymore, so I've been putting it on.
Oh yeah, you can find me at the Hinton Star Wars family on pretty much everything. And there's a new Karita cast coming out, Star Wars podcast day with me and Safi.
Nice. We need to do that for April Fools. We need to have now Safi 2.0 and Axel 2.0
Yes.
on the podcast.
Well, now you just announced it. You ruined the April
Oh,
Fool's.
frick. You're so right. I am so sorry.
2035.
No, it's okay. They heard the goodbyes and they're gone already, right? That's
Right,
it?
right.
They ended it.
Everyone clicked off as soon as I said check us out at this.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, everybody, for listening. I was Zoe.
I was Lizzy. Dad.
That was Chava.
I was Mike.
May the force be with you, and goodbye.
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 Star Wars Geek Girls. They're geek girls that like Star Wars. And sometimes cry.